I first went over there in October of 2001 because I was a working journalist and that was my job. So I've sort of paid attention to Afghanistan for 20 years, not as deeply as I thought I was. However, because we learn all these things, was that really happening? The president of Afghanistan left the country without telling anyone. And some of his aides who were at lunch got back to the office and he was gone. He was on a flight to Tajikistan with tens of millions of U.S. currency. How did that happen? Who was this guy? Turns out we installed as the president of Afghanistan a professor from Johns Hopkins who is the last person. I mean, it just tells you everything about our ruling class, which is they only talk to, believe, trust, promote people exactly like them.
The Afghanistan stuff, obviously I have to ask you a little bit about that, because I'm just catching up on it literally in the last 24 hours. It's sort of, from my perspective, impossible to tell exactly what happened from a media perspective, because it seems like they really are trying to figure out a way not to blame the administration, but this thing seems like as bad a bungling as could it have been worse at this point? Like what could have made this worse, this exit and now everything that's happening?
I can't see it. And I say that as someone who was passionately in favor of withdrawing troops, because I didn't see the point. No one could ever explain what the mission was. And that's just a violation of my most basic rule of life, which is know why you're doing something. You know what I mean? Especially if people are dying and you're spending trillions to do it. What is it? And no one could answer. So I was totally for pulling out. But in order of severity, leave American citizens behind, move tens of thousands of unvetted Afghans who did not work for the U.S. military, who aren't our allies, whose identities we don't know, into suburban America. And then 3, to leave behind $90 billion worth of military equipment, an entire Air Force, 360,000 automatic battle rifles, heavy machine guns, Black Hawks, fixed wing. I mean, it's the Taliban now control the best armed military of its size in the world.
It's unimaginable. Truly.
It's unbelievable. And then you start learning, and I felt I was pretty well versed on Afghanistan. I mean, I first went over there in October of 2001 because I was a working journalist and that was my job. So I've sort of paid attention to Afghanistan for 20 years, not as deeply as I thought I was. However, because we learn all these things, was that really happening? The president of Afghanistan left the country without telling anyone. And some of his aides who were at lunch got back to the office and he was gone. He was on a flight to Tajikistan with tens of millions of U.S. currency. How did that happen? Who was this guy? Turns out we installed as the president of Afghanistan a professor from Johns Hopkins who is the last person. I mean, it just tells you everything about our ruling class, which is they only talk to, believe, trust, promote people exactly like them. I don't think you speak Dari or Pashto, I'm assuming. But if I said, Dave Rubin, your job is to pick a leader of Afghanistan, you'd probably pick some pretty tough Pashtun warlord type who could make the provinces obey if you wanted a central government, right?
He probably wouldn't have gone to Johns Hopkins. How about that?
Right. So then it turns out that this guy's he's got 2 kids, both with American passports. One is and I'm quoting, visual artist in Brooklyn. And the other was a staffer for Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign. And you're like, wait a second. Afghanistan, the poorest country in the world, on the other side, South Asia, other side of the globe, we pick a leader who is exactly like our leaders. And that's how you know that it's all about narcissism. It's only about self-love, self-worship. These people are incompetent because they're narcissists. They can't imagine that anybody but a Johns Hopkins professor of some totally douchey discipline too, social science. He's not even a math professor. He's not even a real professor. And you made him president of Afghanistan because
I think it was lesbian dance theory. I'll have to check that, but I think yeah. So, but how bad do you? How bad do you think this will be? I mean, it seems to me this is almost the type of thing, if we had an honest media, that could actually topple an administration. This seems and now the phone call where Biden basically was in advance trying to cover the whole thing up about how bad things had gotten there. Like, this seems extraordinarily awful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those moments, and there are, usually things change incrementally in a way that's only barely perceptible, and you wake up and everything's different. 2015, the middle class became the minority of the American population. No one really noticed. 6 years later, it's like pretty obvious, okay, that we live in Brazil. This is one of those rare moments where the pivot point is like right in your face. It's crisp, it's dramatic, it's on television. Like, that nothing will be the same after this. You're just not exactly sure in what way it'll be different. But the obvious effects, of course, were just a radical diminishment of American power. It's pretty clear the United States can't actually enforce its will, even on this Stone Age country. It can't make anybody do what it wants them to do. It won't protect people it says it will protect. It can't even protect its own citizens because it doesn't even try. The people in charge are dumb. They don't know they're dumb. They have no actual skills. They're totally unaware of that. Like, it's ripped the mask off. And I'm not personally smart enough to figure out all the ramifications of this, but they are absolutely profound. And you're going to see an acceleration of trends already in progress, which is like, none of the 340 million people who live here really think the people in charge have any clue what they're doing. Nobody really believes the system is real. Nobody actually thinks we live in a representative democracy. Nobody really believes in American empire. Like, it just makes everybody totally cynical, totally atomized. There is no kind of center of gravity in America. Like, right? This is bad, man. I think it's really, really bad.
Is that the most dangerous place that a country can be? That it only works if we believe that it works, and we it feels like we're in the show must go on version of democracy. Like, we're like, oh, it's just got to go on because it's got to go on, even though the president probably has dementia, nobody's listening to anybody, we're unearthing and upending everything we ever believed in, but we got to keep the show going.
But everything works that way. I mean, everything. I mean, there's a huge corpus of literature on the effective attitude on health. There are cases, not a few, many cases that are documented in the medical literature of people who got better because they decided to. So mind over matter, that's a real thing. How you feel about something. And the opposite is also true. Anxiety can give you cancer, like terminal cancer. So how you feel about something determines what that thing is. And in the case of like a huge, incredibly complex project like running a country this big, it's determinative. It makes all the difference. Like, if people believe in it, it works. If they don't, it doesn't. And I'm just amazed. There are a lot of reasons why no one believes in the system anymore, but I'm just amazed by the recklessness of a ruling class that sets out intentionally to destroy, say, patriotism. And then what do you replace it with?
Right.
We haven't replaced it with anything. So, we kneel for the anthem. Okay, what's your idea? We don't have a racial majority, a religious majority, increasingly not even a meaningful linguistic majority. Like, what is it that holds the country together? What do we all have in common? Countries don't hang together by accident. Centrifugal force is a physics principle. Like, it breaks apart unless there's a reason for it to hold together, period. So what's ours? And the idea that they would systematically go through and destroy the last remaining connective tissue between hundreds of millions of Americans, professional sports. Well, we're all into football. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
That's a political category now. We all believe in the military. Not anymore. They're lecturing us about white rage. Oh shit, I'm white. I guess I'm excluded from this. I mean, who thought of this? This is the single craziest thing our ruling class has done has been thematic. And the theme is destroy the connection between Americans.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about the media instead of nonstop yelling, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out the full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.